let's take this idea of greatest integer function and let's make sure we're comfortable with two things. First of all, the definition and how we can evaluate some values within this function. So a quick reminder, the greatest integer function is defined to be the greatest integer less than or equal to x. Well, what does that mean? Let's kind of piece this together. Let's first talk about this this term integer. What do we mean when we say integer? Well, recall that this set of integers are the set of negative and positive whole numbers. So the set of negative and positive whole numbers. So here's some examples of some integer values. And these do go infinitely, where they go infinitely to the right and infinitely to the left. But these are just some examples of integers. So they're positive and negative whole numbers. So whatever number we input into our function, the output is going to be an integer. Let's take a look at some examples here. If I asked you to evaluate, let's say 1.8, we want to figure out what is the biggest integer, the greatest integer that's less than 1.8. So less than, if we're dealing with less than, if we're on the number line, let's sketch a few values here on the number line so you can get a little bit more of a clearer picture in terms of what it is that we're doing. What we're doing here, if we locate 1.8, 1.8 is located right here, in between 1 and 2, a little bit closer to 2. We want to figure out what is the biggest integer that's less than this point, that's less than 1.8. And if you look at that, less than means we're going to the left. That's equivalent to saying 1. Let's evaluate a few more of these guys over here. So example 2. Let's evaluate the greatest integer of, I don't know, let's call it 4.03. Okay, so locating 4.03 on the number line. If we locate 4.03 on the number line, I'll do that with that green pen over here. We're a little bit more than 4. And the biggest integer that's less than that, we're going to go to the left of it, is right here. And that's the same thing as saying 4. Again, remember that all of our outputs here are going to map us onto any one of these integer values. Let's try 2 more. What would happen if I input, let's say, a 1/3 in here? What is the biggest integer that's less than or equal to 1/3? Well, let's locate 1/3 on the number line. 1/3 is between 0 and 1, a little bit closer to the 0. The biggest integer that's smaller than 1/3, we're going to go to the left, is equal to 0. And then let's try one more example. We'll call this example 4. What if we input a -5? Well, going back to this definition, it is the greatest integer that's less than or equal to x. So that means if we're at an integer, which we already are at -5, it's equal to it. So we get here -5.